This episode of Legacy Curious is brought to you by Legacy Protectors. Customize insurance strategies for business owners and families who aspire to create a lasting legacy. Hello there, and welcome to Legacy Curious, the show where we explore what it really means to protect, grow, and pass on everything you've worked so hard to build. I'm your host, David Gravelle. I'm a life insurance strategist, business legacy coach, and founder of Legacy Protectors. Each episode, I sit down with the bold thinkers, entrepreneurs, and everyday visionaries who are turning their values into lasting impact in business, in life, and across generations. Today's guest is Brian Jones. Brian has a very diverse background over the past 35 years, which includes direct involvement in manufacturing, product design and management, software systems, and an even larger career in sales and marketing, which exposed him to a wide variety of business verticals in the U.S. and how they operate. He has also owned 3 businesses in the past and owns the Sunbelt Business Broker franchise, so he is fully aware how difficult it is to start up and maintain a company, as well as how difficult it can be to try and sell a business on your own. Brian is a member of the International Business Brokers of America and the Better Business Bureau of Oklahoma City. Well, hello, Brian. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. You can see I'm outside here in Oklahoma City, and I know you're joining us from close by. What part of Oklahoma City are you in?
I'm out of my office in Tulsa today. But
Okay.
yes, we have an office in Oklahoma City as well as Tulsa, virtual office in Muskogee. But I'm here today in Tulsa.
All right, great. So you can help people all around the state, it sounds like.
That's correct. Our business focuses only on the state of Oklahoma, but the entire state, yes.
Okay, so let's get to know you a bit here. Brian, I have you on today to help our viewers who are primarily business owners kind of learn, first off, when time is right for them to sell, what that sell process looks like, some pitfalls, some best practices, and then, we're going to talk about how to deal with brokers. So why don't you tell us about yourself and your journey into business brokerage?
Okay. I got into, I'll just talk a little bit about my first involvement in businesses was actually as a technician. I used to do hardware and software design for a company called Telex Computer Products way back in the 80s. But through that time, I worked for Microsoft after that and some other technology businesses, and ventured into owning my own business, a software development firm. And I had a diamond tool business. So I had several businesses, and I started, after that, I sold those and started consulting just because of my background. I knew how to help people, and it just kept evolving. And ultimately, I saw the brokerage side as a way to really help people in their biggest need of their business life, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest decisions you're ever going to make is selling your business. And I did it a couple of times, well, 3 times. And I knew how complex it was and how uninformed we are as business owners about the process, how to value a business, putting together a contract, the whole thing. Really, most business owners, for good reason, don't know how to go through the process. So
that's right. We're good on imagining and dreaming up a business and running it, but the exit, we definitely need some help. And so, what it sounds like software technology might be some good businesses for you to help. What other industries, have you been working with, and where do you find, kind of your most success?
Well, as an employee, I was involved in manufacturing, the ISO 9000 processes, selling manufacturing outsourcing services as a salesman. Technology, manufacturing, but then we sold quite a bit of the trades, HVAC, plumbing businesses. When it comes to what we sell, we're very horizontal in nature. The only thing we really stay away from is restaurants, in bars and those sort of things. But everything else we've sold at one time or another, which is we like the variety.
Yeah, and so I'm imagining each situation's different, and each owner, you have to tailor your approach. How do you kind of balance that emotional and financial needs of the client during this time? Because, like you said, it's probably one of their most, if not the most, important business decision they're making.
Well, empathy is important. Just having the experience, and I know exactly where they're coming from. It's a very nervous situation. You don't want to leave a lot of money on the table. So you say, well, how do I know what I should do here? I don't want to lose money, or I don't want to make a mistake and get sued. There's all sorts of these concerns, and just providing the understanding that, hey, we'll get you there. We've done it many times. So it really calms people down. And then ultimately understanding what their needs are to retire, and then put together a plan to get them there financially, as far as, okay, if I want $1 million at close with this type of business, you really need to be bringing in about this amount. And if they want that $1 million and they're not quite there yet, then they have to make a plan, as you're fully aware, of how to get there, and set them on their way. But if after evaluation that we offer with anyone that has an inquiry, we can determine very quickly if we can get there. Because of our experience, we understand what it's going to take to sell the business, what we can get for it through historical data, as well as just our experience being a broker. And then we can, at that point, get it on the market and sell it.
Yeah. Okay. So what are, do you have a memorable business sale that you facilitated that comes to mind, where it was both professional and personal, rewarding?
Well, yeah. This is sort of a common theme, but this went to some extremes. I had a owner, again, had no clue how to get started. And we began the process. I explained in detail the process, but it's involved enough where sometimes people will just forget what I've said. I put it in the paper, but still, we get busy and forget. But we were basically gathering information. I said, I need this, and this. It's a lot of information for any seller. They're going, my gosh, you need all this stuff? Yes. And wait till we do due diligence. It's even worse. And so he was constantly complaining about wasting time, in his opinion, putting all his documents together. Then we had a buyer, and it was 10 times worse. He was complaining all the time. He said, hey, what do you want next? A blood sample, my DNA and all that? I go, well, if you're offering it, just kidding. He didn't think I was too funny at the time. Anyway, so we finally got there and sold the business. Actually got, believe it or not, probably about 20% more than the valuation, because we found the right buyer. That, by the way, that rarely happens. I don't want to set anybody's expectations. But anyway, so he's happy about that. But he bought me dinner, and then at all the complaining, at the end of the day, he goes, Brian, I could have never done this without you. Thank you so much. Very thankful and all that. But what was going on is that his outbursts were purely stress related. Purely. It's a scary thing, selling your business and hoping, again, that everything goes right and you get the amount that you need to retire, permanently, not have to go back work, 8 or 10 years later in your 70s or something. So
that's right. It can't
I knew that, but it's kind of funny. You got to have some thick skin as a broker, believe me.
Right. And that empathy, I think, goes a long way, because it is a time where they have to be completely transparent. And, that can be embarrassing, because not everyone's house is in order 100%. And, you're proud of what you've built, and you don't want to be told that it's less than. And so I understand that. Okay. So let's talk about, how some business owners might determine that they're ready to sell, and not just, in their mind, but when is it? What are the key indicators that a business owner should kind of, hear either internally from themselves telling it, but also, where they have their business to know that it's time to sell?
I think the biggest indicator that I see is that if they say to themselves or someone else, if I was 20 years younger, man, I'd be doing this, that, and the other thing, but, I'm okay. I'll just keep kind of doing what I'm doing. If you're not trying to continuously grow, there is the ability, not ability, but there's a probability of the business actually starting to slide down. which is the last thing you want to happen when you're trying to sell a business. You want to be on an even flow or an uptick over time to be of interest. So that's a warning that, if you continue in this mode too long, you are gonna be leaving money on the table. The other thing is health related, of course. If you're having heart problems or sight all sorts of things, that's definitely an indicator. Because we have had stories where a seller was in poor health. He unfortunately passed away, and the wife was left holding the bag, so to speak, of the company. And unfortunately, it doesn't usually go well unless they're already in the business. But they'll come in and try to figure things out. Sometimes employees might take advantage of the situation. Vendors might. Then banks will start freezing credit, and it becomes a downhill slide. So you really want to protect yourself. I mean, if you're in a situation where that could occur, you definitely need to think about selling. But those are really the two. There's not like a magic three number, but I'd say those two is just your own interest in growing the business, or your lack of ability to probably handle it from a health perspective. Those are two things to really think about.
All right, so let's talk about the timeline. What is a typical timeline from the time a seller, let's say, makes that decision to sell and when the deal closes? And what are kind of the major milestones along the way?
Yeah, that's the golden question, or $20,000 question. By the way, just a little plug. We do have a step process that I'll go through if anybody wants to go through that one day. But we call it a 10-step process. But basically, industry stats are showing it takes about, on average, 8.1 months. And you say, why would it take that long? Well, number one, it can take 60 to 90 days just to get approved for a SBA loan, which the vast majority of business purchases are through the SBA. And with some of the reductions in force in the SBA department, there have been some delays. So 90 days is something that someone should budget their time for. Additionally, once a business is listed, it really takes a while for a buyer to make their mind up that, hey, I am going to buy this, because first of all, you're looking at the business, right? You're looking at the data and trying to figure out if this is something that's going to work. But you're normally not just looking at that. So you're looking at this business, you're looking at that one. It's like going to a store and looking at products on a shelf. This one has a cost, this has an LOI, this one has, those sorts of things. And it takes a while for them to make a decision which company to buy. That could take a month or two right there. And then they're going to go to their CPA, say, hey, look at these numbers. They're going to go to their attorney. What do you think? And then the biggest decision maker, which is your significant other, because on an SBA loan, if you have a home, property, cars, it's all going to be put up on a lien. And so it is at risk. And a lot of times that's not something that's that the wife will get excited about, or the husband, depending on who's doing it. There might be some pushback there. So, and I forgot where I was going with that. What was the question?
Up to 8 months around 8 months is the average. Yeah.
I was thinking back in time where my wife had said no on some deals I was trying to do myself.
Right.
But yeah, so before you know it, there's 6 to 8, 7 months right there. And and with COVID, during COVID, by the way, I sold the business for almost $4 million, but it took me 18 months because of that. So there can be some delays based on, external forces, but you really need to budget about eight months, probably. Now, as far as the process goes, as you would imagine, we need lots of documentation, financials, equipment lists, inventories, those sorts of things. We'll do the evaluation. And then once we get approval that this is what we're going to list the business for, then we have an agreement. It's your agreement. Of course, that gets signed, and we move forward. And then we actually build a marketing document, kind of like a prospectus, if you will, 20,000-foot view of the business, and they'll see the numbers, a little more detail about the owner, et cetera, et cetera. After that, we can share detailed financials if they're still interested. Oh, by the way, one of the things that I want to make sure is understood, it's always generically listed online so nobody knows who it is. Because we don't want we don't want the employees knowing that the business is for sale or the competitors, right? So, it's very discreet. So after we put the documents together, we do put it online. We also have a database that we blast out to because we get people calling us all the time. Hey, I'm looking for this kind of business. Hey, can you take my name down? So I do that, and when we get a like business, we'll send it out to them. So that's when we're bringing in people of all shapes and sizes. We get a lot of crazy people also. The internet doesn't discriminate on who can look at our listings. So we do a lot of filtering and ultimately come up with someone that's making an offer. We go through the dance of, back and forth of the LOI, finally come to an agreement. Then what is something called due diligence. And by the way, that's where most deals fail, if they're going to, is where there's a deep dive on all the information provided in that initial document, that kind of prospectus I mentioned, 20,000 foot view of the company. And once that is determined to be, okay, I like everything I see, then what is called a purchase agreement is put together. And that's a back and forth negotiation as well, but usually between lawyers and that sort of thing. Once that's completed, then there's a date set for a close, and those documents are signed. The keys, so to speak, are handed over. The money's transferred, and the planned retirement starts at that point. Usually, there is a period where the owner will help the buyer for a period of time, 45 days, 90 days, 30 days, depending on the complexity of the business. But after that, they're available through phone call, but they're doing what they always wanted to do.
Right. Okay, so thanks for walking us through that. So help us understand, what are some of the document gaps that business owners have when they first approach you, and why do you need 2 to 3 year financials? I'm assuming that that's really where you're noticing that they come unprepared.
Right. Yeah, you can't just have 1 year, because who knows? That could have been their best year they've had in 50 years, and all the other years were half that, right? So you want to be able to look at trends. Sometimes through due diligence, you may have only provided 3 years, and they'll say, "Hey, I want to see 5 years," right? Just to make sure they know what they're seeing. They can see a trend. Are you going up? Which you hopefully as a seller you are, because you'll get more for your business. So that's the reason for that. And, of course, you want to look at balance sheets to understand how much debt is there for the seller, because you want to make sure at closing those debts are all paid. You don't want to be tied to those somehow. So you just want to look at the trend there, and you also can look at what the working capital requirements are by looking at those balance sheets over time. Has working capital requirements gone up or down? So you understand where you most likely will be in a year if you use the same recipe for success that the seller is currently using, right? So it's all about setting expectations, making sure you know what you're getting into.
All right. So the financials are like a crucial portion of it, but I'm imagining the other, critical component is the operational readiness of the business, and how, let's say, management independent they are from the founder. Talk to that. What should a business be preparing, or kind of putting in place before they talk to you to make sure that they kind of pass that test?
Yeah, that is such a good question. If at all possible, if you're deciding to sell a business, your best bet is make it to where you are not that important and to run the business. You say, well, I don't want to do that. It's my business. Well, the thing is, you're not going to be there. And an owner would feel much better if a new owner would feel much better if the current owner would stay, but he can't. He wants to retire. So the next step is having someone that's been there for a while, or a general manager that can run it in the current owner's absence. If they can't, and there's some comfort knowing that, hey, I've got someone here that already knows how to run the business. I'm going to learn it over time, but it's not like day one, I got to be running everything, right? And that's normally not the case anyway. That's why the owner will stay around for 45 days. He'll actually help you run the whole thing for a while till you get up to speed. But still, it is a lot better to have that person that could run the operation without you being there. Now, if you plan to sell in a year or two, three, start that process now, because as you know, that won't happen overnight, getting someone into that position. But I'll tell you this, you'll get a lot more interested parties in buying your business if it can run with that general manager.
Okay, great
Absolutely.
advice there. All right, excellent. So, I'm imagining that, managing owner expectations for the valuation is a big challenge.
Mhm.
So how do you help them see what their business is actually worth? And then what are some of the common mistakes that business owners make in the 1 or 2 years leading up to when they want to sell that could hurt the valuation?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people said their business is worth $1 million, regardless of how much. It didn't matter what
Love
they
that
were making.
number, right? It sounds like a great number. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we do to basically ensure that we're in the right ballpark for a listing is, well, number one, hopefully they understand we've been doing this a while. We've seen a variety of businesses, and I can just tell you, we can look pretty quick at numbers and have a good idea. However, we always want to back up what we say. We have access to SBA databases. There's a variety of sources out there that we review, including our own, but there's some third parties out there. So we'll look at it and make our estimates, and then we'll get back up from these databases of recently sold businesses, that are similar in sales volume, similar in net income, sellers' discretionary earnings, EBITDA, all that. And we'll have multiples, and you'll say, look, here is the sell price based on these numbers. We feel like your business is, say, in the top 70 percentile. So here was the average. We're going to move you up right here. This would be a good sale price. And we show that to the clients so to make sure we're not just making these numbers up. But seriously, it really helps ensure that, again, we're not leaving money on the table. And that is one of the biggest concerns that an owner has. I don't want to ask something unreasonable, but at the same time, I sure as heck don't want to, leave money on the table because I'm retiring. I'm going to need every dime I can or I can get to ensure my longevity financially.
Sure. So from a seller's perspective, what should they look for when choosing a business broker? And, what are some of the questions they should be asking before signing an engagement?
Yeah, it's kind of the age-old question is, how long you've been doing this? It's true. You really need several years under your belt to really honestly know what you're doing. I mean, minimum 5 years, in my opinion, with a broker, and then some empathy. Have you ever owned a business? If you're a broker right out of college, it'd be a tough assignment. But it really would be good to have your own business. I mean, they just know when someone says, "Man, I just can't find good employees anymore," or "Man, I'm tired of these sleepless nights. I'm ready to get a good night's sleep one of these days." A lot of people that have never owned a business and been responsible for everything, they wouldn't probably understand that. So
Right.
I think empathy is important. Another thing too, this is my opinion, but it works for me. I think that you have to have some sales ability. Now, I know some brokers will not probably approve of that, but when I represent my client, I'm competing with other like businesses that other brokers are selling. I want to sell the business to that buyer, have them look at this business and they go, "I want that business. That guy, he told me everything I need. I understand it. He explained it really well. He followed up with me after I had these questions, because you'd be surprised. Some brokers just don't have that EQ among it to create a relationship, to understand what the questions are, to make sure there's follow-up, those sorts of things. That's sales 101. But it needs to be part of the process, because we have a lot of hats. We can be salespeople, part-time accountants, part-time paralegal, closing office, the works. And you need to have some abilities in all of those. So, and I would include sales in that, because again, we are competing with others. But those kind of top three things I would think would be something to look for.
Okay. And so you talked about the buyers there. How do you balance casting a wide net with protecting the seller's confidentiality? As you mentioned, these are all kind of stripped of any identifying information when they're listed, right. But, the buyers, they're going to know. And, how do you make sure you're dealing with a reputable buyer and someone that isn't maybe, trying to somehow hurt your seller?
Mm-hmm. Well, number one, they do sign an NDA, and that's important too. What type of NDA is it? We have a tough one, really, and I would encourage all brokers to have something that it states if you cause any damage, you are legally liable for such damages. And that's one of the things when I'm talking with buyers, I make sure they understand. And they'll ask me, "Hey, I'm going to go into partnership with my friend or my buddy." And I'll say, well, you need to have them sign the NDA as well. And I said, oh, really? Because, well, if you don't and they talk, you're going to be liable. Do you want to be liable if he starts blabbing about the business? No, let me get him to sign it. And so, you want to make sure they take that seriously. Out of, I don't know, I think in the last 10 years, I've had one instance where it got, so to speak, blabbed. Fortunately, it was the guy that was buying already, and it did get out. But unfortunately, the guy was at a party, got drunk, and was bragging about his new company he bought. Yeah. And the next day, someone walks into the business and said, "Hey, I hear you're selling the business." And there's just people in the office. The owner was not happy. But fortunately, that's only happened once. And the guy, that was funny. The spouse she let him have it too. It was something else. But anyway, that's the only time it's ever happened. And again, you just want to make sure they understand the consequences of that to ensure the word doesn't get around, because it can cause damage once the word gets out.
All right. So let's talk about when you have a buyer that makes an offer and maybe you have a second offer. How do you help your sellers determine, which is the offer that has the best terms and risk profiles?
Well, you got to take a lot in consideration of several things. Of course, the price is important, but also the background of the individual. And it's very important to owners, who's going to take care of my employees, right? They have relationships with these employees. They do not want to see someone come in there and just ruin the company and all their employees that they have these relationships over 10, 20, 30 years sometimes. Their lives are destroyed because they get laid off and now they got to find another job. And on top of that, then it goes down another layer to the customers that they have relationships with. The customers will call them up, say, "Hey, why'd you sell this business? Now I bought this product, now I can't get it fixed, it broke, and why did you do that?" So, it's real important to take all those things into consideration. So it's the money, of course, it's the background of the individual, not only what they're offering, but what's the financial ability of the buyer after the sale, right? Are they bringing enough money to the table? Now, the bank will help you determine that, but also, will this person get along with the current employees? There's all sorts of things to consider, and the owner will, I've seen it, they'll take less money because they know this guy that they're going to bring in is going to treat their employees right, which will in turn, if you have happy employees, you'll usually have happy customers.
Right. Protecting the legacy sounds like it's critical for founders, especially, right? Yeah. They want to make sure the new owners are good stewards, not only to their employees, first and foremost, but to their clients as well, like you said.
Right.
it's like losing your head coach on a college football team. You got to go into the portal if you don't like the new coach coming in. So you want to pick the next person, to lead them that's going to be respected and valued and treat everyone like you would. So yeah, that seems really critical. All right, so let's talk about, what happens when some of the business sales fall apart, and how do you prevent those, issues from, let's say, kind of tumbling into other areas and spiraling?
Yeah, that does happen. We've had a few deals where we signed someone, they were doing really well. But usually the reason for that is the owner is taking a breather. He's getting ready to sell and decides, I'm going to sell this anyway. I'm going home at noon today, or I don't want to do that bid. That's going to take me two days to do that bid, even though I might make, $2 million. I just don't want to do it. I'm ready to retire. That sort of attitude, and that's top down, by the way, that will cause problems. So you got to keep folks. As a matter of fact, I tell my sellers, once you're ready to sell, work harder than you ever have, because it will really help you long term. Because again, I think I mentioned before, you want a business kind of either maintaining or going up to look more appealing. Because remember, you are in competition with other businesses for sale, just like yours, or at least close to it anyway. So you got to remember that. So that's the worst thing that I've seen, or taking unnecessary risks that you normally wouldn't because you're selling. So you just got to selling your business out of your mind. Run it as if you are not selling and that you need to grow the business. If you take that mentality, those things won't happen.
Great advice. So we'll wrap it up here with you kind of leaving our audience with some of the first things that they should be doing as they're, preparing to sell. Is there one or two things you can recommend, whether it's, 2 years from now or less, when, they want to put it up for sale? What advice would you have?
Well, first of all, start showing your revenue. It's tempting to say, I want to save the tax money. Well, let me give you an example. If you say, I'm going to spend $100,000 so I don't have to pay tax on it, right? And let's say you're paying 20%, tax on that purchase. So you feel like, okay, well, I saved 20,000. Well, here's the problem. If we are using a factor of 3 times cash flow, right? And you took $100,000 out of the net, you saved 20, but your price got knocked down by 300,000. Doesn't take a math genius to know what you should be doing. So to get the maximum value for your business, go ahead and take it in the shorts from the IRS. Show all that revenue. That you'll get well more out of that than you will ever on the tax savings. That's great advice. And I think if they took one thing away from today's conversation is that's going to, pay them back as soon as they sell it. Sounds like, 3 times fold before, they have to worry about saving whatever taxes they're paying on that. You have another one? Absolutely. Yeah. The other one, well, we talked about already, get someone in line to replace you now, right? That's real key. You'll be much more appealing. And here's something else. It might not be in the top 3, so probably top 5. It just comes to mind because I just left a place earlier today. Clean up your building. It's amazing to me. What happens? You get kind of blind to having a messy place. But I've been in places where they're working and you see stuff in the corner piled up. You see dust on the rafters, that thick, and it's making money, but and by the way, I've gone to these places and I said, I didn't they mention you need to clean up? He goes, oh, we did. It is clean. So, that's a lot of times in a machine shop or something like that. Those get pretty dirty. But it's real. I mean, what it shows is you're organized, right? It's not necessarily, it's nice to be clean, but you want to show that you've got an organized business. Organized appearance means organized numbers, means organized employees, means organized customer, so it gives you the impression, which it should, that you've got your business in order. It's just part of it. It's, appearance, it's, cash flow, it's everything. So I would say that's good enough I'd say for top three. If you do those sort of things, start working on that now. Because you're going to show the place. You want it to look nice. But that definitely gives a good impression. That helps.
All right. Well, great. Well, thanks, Brian, for being here today and sharing all of that knowledge with us. Hopefully, our audience, will remember those top three right there at a minimum. And let's tell them how to get in touch with you. We'll have it in the description. But where can they reach you?
Okay. Just send me an email at bjones. That's Brian Jones. So it's bjones@sunbeltnetwork.com. And we're at www.sunbeltnetwork.com. You can look at our offices there and see the businesses that we currently have listed. So, either way, you can get a hold of me those ways.
Great. Well, thanks for being here today, Brian. We appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to potentially having you back on in the future to teach us some new things.
All right, David. Look forward to it.
Thank you to our listeners and audience for spending time with us today on Legacy Curious. I hope this conversation gave you some insight, encouragement, or just that little spark you needed to keep you moving forward in your own legacy journey. If you got value from today's episode, please take a second to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone else who's building something that matters. And if you're ready to take that next step, protecting your business, planning for retirement, or passing on your legacy with purpose, head to legacyprotectors.life to schedule a conversation. Until next time, I'm your host, David Gravelle, reminding you to stay curious, stay committed, and keep building something worth passing on.